missed any beginning notes before we give the floor over to Bob.
I just want to give a big shout out to Stacy for stepping into this role and emceeing for us today. As you can see, we definitely picked the right person for that. So I think that Bob and Lynn will probably cover anything that you didn't, but you were very thorough. Thank you, Stacy.
All right, thanks. Without further ado then, Bob Quay.
Thank you, Stacy. It's my pleasure to be here today. As you know, excuse me, we didn't have a district conference last year. That happened just about when the pandemic was getting in full strength. And so it's great to have one this year. We've got a bit of housekeeping that we need to take care of before we get into our plenary speaker, and that is the approval of the 2019-2020 financial statement. We are operating on the current year budget, and the previous year budget has already been taken care of, and we've had a outfit that went in and did a review on that. And the last thing that we have to do is have all of the clubs approve that. So I'll share my screen here real quickly, and we'll take a look at the financial statement. This went out to all the presidents of the clubs. The bottom line of the financial statement is the net assets at the beginning of the year were $165,273, and the assets at the end of the year were $187,285. So as you can see, we had more money left over. A lot of that was due to the fact that we didn't have a district conference last year, and there were some expenses that we shut things down about March. So there were some expenses in April, May, and June that we didn't have due to the COVID. So are there any questions that anybody has on the review of the financial statement? It's also out on the website if anybody is interested, and if anybody doesn't know where to find it, I can send you a copy.
Do you need a motion to approve, Bob?
I do.
Okay, well, I move to approve the financials.
Thank you.
Hey, I see that Alan has a question though.
Yes, Alan.
No, I wasn't asking a question. I was simply going to move. So Dino's already done that. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the review? For your information, what happens now is the review has been sent to RI, and then we will send an email to them saying that the clubs have approved. So if you would in the chat type your club and a vote yes or no, then we can approve the budget, last year's review.
Can I make a suggestion? Instead of all of us voting like that, can anybody who disapproves, that's how mostly they do it nowadays, so that it's, if anyone disapproves, then their name is stated, but everybody else is considered to approve.
Well, that's true, but this way we'll have the record, we'll have it on the record of who approved it.
Okay.
Not only that, but there are several people on the call that might not be a president that may have voted. So we'll have to sync the votes with the president's list.
So we only vote if we're president-elect, is that correct?
We need one vote from each club. It's not a president-elect. It would be the president or somebody standing in for the president.
Okay.
But if you're not sure if somebody else is voting, go ahead and vote, and then we'll straighten all that out after we see the chat. Give everybody a couple of minutes to get that in. While everybody is voting, I also wanted to welcome the past district governors. John, it's been a long time since I've been to the Pullman area. It's good to see you, and Bev and Norm, Case. our call is currently at 120 members, so it's kind of tough to see everybody on the screen, but
But it's a good turnout.
it is a good turnout. And earlier individuals were saying why they were here and what they were looking forward to. I'm here because of my role in the district, but I'm also looking forward to a great year with Lynn and having her take over as the district governor, so I don't have to do that anymore.
Bob, this is Alan. Can I ask a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
This is a simple one. I typed in yes for Wallace, but I don't know how to send it. Is it there now, or do I have?
Just
to
hit
do
the return.
something?
Once you type it, just hit return and it'll send it.
Either return or
Hit enter.
Enter.
I don't see any of that on my screen.
So it's on your keyboard. Enter on your keyboard.
could say enter or return, Alan.
Okay. Well, I wished I wasn't on screen right now because
Well, I've got your vote,
I'm
Alan.
showing,
We
I'm
we
showing,
feel your pain.
I'm moving into the 21st century, dragging my feet the entire way, but it's got to be.
Alan, you're not alone.
Well, thank you. If it isn't on, off, high, low.
I've got your vote, Alan.
Oh, okay.
I found it finally. God, it took me forever. It took forever, but I found it. I'm in there now.
Lana,
Yeah, it's working
mute
now.
yourself, Lana.
So I can do it now. Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Mute yourself, Lana.
Okay.
Lana, mute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, Stacy, that's all for the approval of the review. Turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. We'll give the floor to Lynn for a moment. District Governor-elect Lynn O'Connor.
Good morning, everybody. I'm a morning person. It's great. I love mornings and it's a spectacular morning. And I want to thank you for being here today. I know how it might feel. I hope though that our speakers will inspire you to look at the direction that Rotary International is looking, and that you will also give good consideration to the term change. Consider that change is okay, whether it's imposed upon us or whether it's an opportunity and that you're choosing it. Change is scary, but there's no such thing as failure. If something doesn't work, it was a first attempt in learning. Try something else. Anything else to reinvigorate why you are a Rotarian and how to encourage others to see us for what we really are, people who want to take action to make things better. Time is our most valuable resource. I'm so grateful that you've given us your time this morning, and we'll do our best to make the most of it. Please continue to give Rotary your time. Rotary is the best movement the world has seen, and the world will need us more than ever as we move into the future. So let's have some fun together today.
Thank you, Lynn. I feel that your fiery background is very appropriate for all that you're going to bring to your year and the tone you set for today. Okay, and next I would like to ask our district governor nominee, Linda Bauer, to please introduce our first special guest of the day.
Thank you, Stacy. I am so happy to have you meet Jordan Harrison. Jordan lives a mission-driven life focusing on radical imagination and eradicating inequality with the constant reminders of our collective humanity. He's an educational consultant, an international youth development specialist, and a professional speaker from Evanston, Illinois. His work has allowed him to speak to over 250 people on diversity, equity, inclusion, and how to develop the audacity to dream. He's currently the Senior Director of Programs for Reality Changers, where he's worked with over 100,000 8th to 12th grade, first generation college-bound students throughout the United States and Europe. He works with students, educators, and professionals to provide solutions to one question. How do we create environments where every person can succeed no matter where they came from? Jordan is committed to changing the educational outcomes of low-income, underrepresented, and first-generation students from underserved communities around the world. He's worked on creating solutions to urban education challenges with the U.S. Attorney's Office, Fortune 100 companies, U.S. News and World Reports, UC San Diego, Harvard University, and many others. His work recently earned him a full ride fellowship to Harvard University, where he earned his master's in education in 2018. Jordan continues his work in transforming lives, communities, and the world with the message to encourage others to have the audacity to dream and the discipline to achieve. Hold on to your hats, folks, as we welcome Jordan to District 58.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for the introduction. Glad to be here. I actually am going to start us off with a little dance party if we're okay with that. So I'm going to put on a song just so we can dance just for a little bit to get this district conference started. So y'all might know it. I'm just going to play it. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Good morning. Yes, you do have the right to record. Please do. So glad to be here with you all. Excited to be here. Jordan Harrison, a Rotarian in District 5340 with San Diego Rotary Club. The constant joke at my club was that when I joined the club, it brought down the average age by 50 years. So glad to be a Rotarian amongst Rotarians and really thinking through how we can expand, celebrate, and bring in more of our folks together. Now, I also do have an ask. Can I also be co-spotlighted with our closing keynote, which we're gonna do this together? Danica, is that possible as well for us both to be spotlighted, myself and Danica? Oh, yes, there she is. What's up, Danica? So I want you all to know, we talked before this phenomenal conference and really thought, how can we bring the most dynamic, powerful experience to you all? And we realized we have to do this together. As we think about the world and the work that we're trying to do, we understand that we can only do this together, and virtually we can do so much more. So I don't have the whole bio for Danica. All I can tell you all is she's incredible. She's a woman that's a Jedi master. So justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, just masterful in the work, honest in our conversations. And we're hoping that through this morning, both of us collectively can spark some conversations, some awareness, some considerations as we really think through how we ourselves personally, our clubs, and our districts can do things together. So thank you so much, Danica, for us doing this together, and I will pass it to you for us to start this day off.
Woo! I'm so grateful for you, Jordan, for like opening with a dance party because I have all of this energy. Like, who else had an extra cup of coffee this morning? Thank you. Thank you for inviting us here today. We are so excited to be here. And yeah, I just kind of want to kick it off because I have an obsession. I'm not a Rotarian, but I kind of have an obsession with you all because I think you're amazing. And I have really been digging deep into the Rotary 4-way test. And I've just been playing with it and then reflecting it through my own experiences. So I sort of shot the idea out to Jordan, like, could we hold this in the space of how we're also trying to include other folks and communities and our own new awarenesses in this? So Rotarians, I want to acknowledge you. We want to acknowledge you as truth seekers. When I think about the Rotary 4-way test and I see, is it truth and is it fair to all concerned? I see your hearts and that you want to do so much good in the world. And I am relating to you as a human, for many of us as a white person, for many of us as people who like to do good and serve. And so I wanted to share a perspective of truth that I came into and that Jordan and I agreed on. And it's this. It's that as we seek truth and as we seek to do good, we must first acknowledge a lie. And there has been a lie told in this world, on this continent, particularly in the United States, for hundreds of years. And it has been told so often that we don't often even see it. We have to dig and look for it and use new perspectives to see this lie. So the lie is this, the original lie, is that people with light skin are better than people with dark skin. Another part of that lie is that people with light skin deserve more and deserve better than people with dark skin, right? So as we talk today about doing good and doing more, and doing better for the world, we must first acknowledge that this lie has been present in our spaces for hundreds of years. And we, Jordan and I, are committed to bringing truth to these moments so that we can all share in our search for truth. And so I want to get a little bit more explicit about what this lie is. So the original lie that came to at least the US or this continent started when the colonialists jumped into ships, white folks came across the ocean, landed on the shores and said, yeah, sure, there's Native Americans that live here, but the white people deserve this land. We deserve to take this land. We are more human and more people than the other people who are here. And that was the original lie on this coastland, or on this coast, in this land. And as they started to explore and spread out and see all the possibility and opportunities around, they thought, well, we need more people.
What's that?
Religion.
Can
Well,
we
that's
wait, pause? Can you please mute yourselves? No, thank you, Claudia, for asking if this is a white shame. Absolutely not. Thank you for asking that question. And we'll dig into what that means in just a minute. But we do need to recognize the history of what's been happening in this space. So white folks did go and get more dark-skinned people from Africa, turned them into slaves to work this land. And I understand too that as a white person, sometimes I want to look in this moment. I want to just see what's happening here right now and not explore what's actually been happening for hundreds of years that help create the context of what's happening right now. So Claudia, I appreciate your question that sometimes these conversations come out as daggers and as weapons. And what we're actually going to ask us to do is just hold history, hold multiple perspectives of truth, and then hold our potential as humanity to do good work together. So I am sensing that there is some energy here. Jordan, would you like to step in for a minute, or would you like me to keep explaining some of the context in the background?
You want to explain just for one more minute and then I'll come back in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as I just mentioned, hundreds of years ago, the lie entered this land when white folks said, hey, we're more human, we deserve more. And what's interesting and what I have had to spend now days and years exploring is how that truth has evolved, or I'm sorry, how that lie has evolved over time to shape my understanding of the spaces around me, right? So what I'm learning and what I'd like to share is that our education fully absorbed the lie. So as I was going through school, I learned about white people and the way that they led the evolution of this country. And I didn't learn deeply about the ways that slavery and Native American history shaped this country as well, or about the ways that Latino and migrant communities have had experiences in this community. I didn't learn about any of that stuff. So the lie is embedded in the education system. Also, I have a house. And it took me a long time to understand how housing and communities are often built on this lie. Who's allowed to own homes, who's allowed to have loans, who is allowed to live in certain communities. The lie is told in a lot of ways now. And what Jordan and I are going to ask you to do is continue to see and open your understanding of how your story in this present, my story, Jordan's story in this present is actually shaped by things that have been happened before that continue to shape who and how we exist today. And in that, I'd like to acknowledge, does the Rotary often do land acknowledgement? Is there a thumbs up or a head nod that I can see? What I would like to do is acknowledge the land that I'm sitting on today. So I'm on the indigenous land with the Coast Salish, the Samish, the Swinomish peoples, and this is the unceded land. And one of the reasons I actually even mention that is because it is part of the constant awareness of course, I live here with my family today. We built that porch outside. We painted this house. But hundreds of years ago, this land was occupied by folks who lived in it beautifully in balance with the earth and the world. And this land wasn't ceded by them. Like, they didn't give it up. Folks, as part of the lie, said, that's our land. We want to take that. We deserve it. And so part of my journey in this, and one of the journeys I invite you into, is to see who's been on the land before you. What is their relationship to the land, and what is yours, and what are the spaces in between? And so I also would like to acknowledge that the land that I am on, and often much of the land in this continent, has actually been worked by Black and brown bodies as well. And so knowing that there is a history, and knowing that we can acknowledge the history of folks whose lives have existed before us on this land, is just the entering place so that we can enter a conversation about truth and about how we connect with the folks around us.
Thank you so much, Danica. I think Rotarians, because I just want to also call in the energy of this space to acknowledge as well the land that I'm on, Kumeyaay Nation land here in San Diego, California, but to also acknowledge that part of this conversation is us critically thinking about the last question of our four-way test. Is it beneficial to all concerned, and will it build goodwill and better friendships? As upcoming and incoming leaders, part of the ways that we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, because we know Rotary International has released a statement that has acknowledged Rotary International is really prioritizing this, that we are really trying to think contextually and honestly around what does that question actually mean to us as leaders of clubs, as leading movements of serving our communities, and what does it mean to look like doing that in partnership with our communities, and how are we aware of our own selves and things that we need to be aware of as true, authentic leaders. Now, I know the audience who we're speaking to, and I know the audience we have. You all have made possibly phenomenal gains in business, in life, in different endeavors. And now we're at this place where we're saying, how can I also endeavor to build a better and more equitable world? And how we're starting this conversation today is that reminder that as we're building our clubs, as we're doing our service projects, as we're going anywhere else, we're thinking about serving and doing service above self, it starts with the awareness of who we are, the histories that we hold, the lived experiences that we share or don't share, and how we can bring all of these things together. And so today, Danica and I wanted to start with acknowledging some of that history, acknowledging our work in challenging that history, and acknowledging the opportunity that we have today as members of a global organization that cares about community, and being able to say, we can change the narrative and really build a world where we won't just end polio, but we can end some of the other isms that are going across our world, racism, sexism, all those different things. We have that opportunity as club members, as connected Rotarians, to say, we can truly make that difference. And Danica and I also wanted to personalize how there's some of the lies are personalized to us. So Danica, would you like to start with just us going back and forth on those?
Absolutely. Will you kick us off, Jordan?
So one of the first slides that I've helped, and we're keeping it honest today. So this is going to be a brave space and an honest space as well. There's probably not a Rotary conference that I've spoken at in person as a keynote speaker, which I'm always grateful to do, where in that moment of walking from the table to the bathroom, someone has asked me to clear their plate. And Danica, you muted yourself.
I love the mute button. I love that I've been on Zoom forever and I can't seem to just, anyways. I have been to Rotary. So I've been with Rotary for a handful of years, coming and sharing and speaking. And whether it's Rotary, whether it's in the workplace, I worked at a university, I've worked in summer camps, I've worked at like restaurants, I've worked at gyms, I've worked all over in every different industry. And I noticed that as a woman, I often can sit in a room and share ideas. And it can be like I am shouting to the wind, and it won't be until somebody else, whether usually they're male or somebody that has more power than me, takes my idea and says the same thing, that the idea gets picked up, and often the credit is given to somebody else.
There have been times for me when I've walked into a space and before folks knowing any educational level, family status, or anything else, I see folks move their purse, grab their items, or feeling like there needs to be an extra sense of safety as I walk into a room.
I have also walked into a room and have the frequent experience where my body gets scanned and I'm reading the facial expressions of approval or disapproval based on my size, my appearance, what I'm wearing. And then often I get the very unlucky experience of hands on me, whether it's somebody coming up and touching me, whether or not it's holding my hands, whether or not it's hands on my shoulders. Now, I am a toucher. I actually love human connection, but I do not love human connection when I have not invited it and when I have not consented to it. So I notice oftentimes that as a woman, men will come up and touch my body. And no matter what body language I say, and often even what language I say, it feels as if folks feel like they have access to my body, even though it's not theirs.
Just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, a person walked up to me and asked me if I had any drugs and was upset when I said no, as though there was this expectation that I'll be able to provide something for them, and upset that I did not meet that expectation because I did not fit the criteria of what they thought I should provide for them.
Yeah, actually, Jordan, thank you for that. That language of the criteria that I should provide for somebody. I am often told that I'm too, and you can fill in the gaps. I'm too much. I'm too little. I did too much. I didn't do enough. I'm too emotional. I'm not connected enough. I'm too confident. I'm not confident enough. I am often told frequently where my lane is and how much I'm allowed to express, emote, and do based on a framework that has nothing to do with my own values.
No, the next one for me was growing up in high school and middle school, oftentimes as a young student in the back of the classroom or oftentimes in the front. Most teachers prescribe my future more to an athlete and needing to focus on the basketball court than possibly doing something in the classroom.
And by the way, thanks for not listening to them because you're an incredible teacher.
Thanks, Danica.
I'm really glad you're here. I noticed that I can have all the time in the world on my work schedule, but I am often asked, particularly by men, to like meet for drinks after work. And I'll say, well, let's just meet during the work day. They're like, no, let's go for drinks afterwards. And then I have to choose several things. One, do I want to be seen out at a bar with a man that's not my partner? Not my husband? Because for men, when they go out for drinks with women, there's kind of this like, hey, that guy's a dude. He gets to hang out with all these different women, whether or not it's his wife, right? But for a woman, being seen out alone in like a private corner of a bar or a restaurant with a man who's not my husband, there is a different level of judgment that comes my way. So I'm aware of that as I say no to drinks after work or not, and who's going to be there. But I also am aware that if I don't show up, oftentimes I don't have the inside knowledge because it's not shared inside the work like schedule and work day. It's often done at like, on golf courses or at a bar at night or in this other party or whatever it might be. And I'm aware that I have to choose between that moment, which may include the opportunity for professional development and opportunities, or time to come home with my family and particularly to be with my child after a long work day and after she's been at school all day.
The last one for me is coming into spaces where there's very few Black people in the room, having to question if I belong, where I belong, and being often having the feeling, and this is more so on the emotive side of, is this space particularly for me? And being told either verbally or non-verbally that it's not.
Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. I'll add one last one as well. I am often the go-to, particularly if I've worked in entrepreneurship and innovation, which tends to be in higher ed, tends to be a male-dominated space. And so I am often the ones that folks come to when we're saying like, tap into your dreams and what's out there and what's blocking you. There's sometimes this emotional stuff that comes up. And I am the one that people come to share their emotions, to share their dreams, to kind of unpack their fears, to see what's happened in their past and relate it to the futures that they dream of. And so I end up spending a lot of time building community, creating healing spaces, helping folks see opportunities that are in front of them. And the counter to that, by the way, which I love doing, the counter is that often my male counterparts will tell me that they have set better boundaries than me. They'll often kind of disparage the emotional labor and not credit the emotional labor that I put in that is actually part of building a healthy community. And I just noticed that the differences that creates in our work life. Like, so for example, they're like, oh, I finished that project very quickly. Whereas I took time to like gather information from people, partly because I had the opportunity to be there in humanity with them.
Now, I want to ask you, Rotarians, a question to engage with us a little bit. Danica, I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to share on that. But I want you all to engage with us. As we think about the clubs that we're trying to build, the experiences that Danica and I both shared, and the positions of leadership that you all are stepping into in this upcoming next Rotary year, there's this interesting opportunity of you being able to question, challenge, or just consider what might be some of the barriers that you might want to acknowledge, address, tackle, break down during this upcoming Rotary year. I think it's very interesting that pretty much at any Rotary Club or district conference that I've gone to, there's usually at least one woman in there who is like, I was one of the first women in this club. I was one of, and it's like, wow, like, and you're alive, and you're like, it was just 20 years ago or 20, and the question that I want you all to consider, and I just want you all to reflect and take a moment to think, when you think about your club, when you think about your district, when you think about what opportunities might be available, when you think about who's not at the table, when you think about the experiences that Danica and I also both shared, what might be some things that you all can at least consider coming into this next Rotary year of things you all can possibly address? Now, don't send it just yet. Here's what I want you all to do. I'm going to ask you all just to type in something. Just type, don't send it, don't send it. I'm going to ask you all to take a moment and to really just think, what does my district look like? What does my district feel like? Think about the experiences that Danica and I both shared and think, are those possibly some of the things that might be going on in my district and club? And is there then an opportunity for me to address it? So I'm going to give you about 15 seconds just to pick something that either you're exploring, you're aware of, or a question you at least want to consider or ask as you go into this next year. It's a phenomenal opportunity to think about, yes, we have women that have broken into the club and broken the threshold of saying this wasn't for a club, but also, are there other ways? So just type, 15 more seconds just to type in something you want to consider, ask, or a wondering that you have about where your club is at, or some ways that it might not be beneficial for all. And I would challenge you a little bit, not just to say, we need more Black people, we need more women, but also think maybe a little deeper of what might be the experiences that they might be coming into that might need to be considered as well, to make sure that our club's sustainable. So, and I'm gonna do a countdown from 3, 2, 1, and I want you all just to send in your answers so we can just see what are some wonderings, what are some questions, what are some noticings, and we'll have a brief conversation about that. So here we go. So I hope you all have your question out there, and please know this is a space that we are welcoming conversation, engaging in conversation, and we welcome you all really sharing your honest truth of what you're seeing. So I'm gonna ask you all to type in your answer and send it in 3, 2, 1, and send your answer. Let's see what we have. Yes, keep them coming, y'all, keep them coming. Okay, let's see. Our club does not look much like me. How to expand our club's vision beyond the local community, improving inclusivity and accessibility. My thought is that of pride. When haven't we been inclusive and sensitive? Interesting. Our club has many women and they are strong leaders, very capable people and great contributors. Yes. Continuing to have age diversity. Thank you for naming that. Do our membership represent the demographics of our community? Great question. Wow, this is a lot. Danica, you want to read a few of these out? I'm seeing a lot of them.
I am. Our district is disproportionately wealthy, making our club more welcoming to all people, including non-white and LGBTQI. I also see I would like my club to acknowledge the ancestral lands that we are on in the beginnings of our meetings. And I don't know if you saw it earlier, Jordan, but there were some names, some folks were naming like, hey, they had just spoken with some tribal members, if I'm getting this right. And they had said like, we don't name multiple tribes. We name one tribe at once. And I just think there's so much beautiful learning. And I love that we're seeing some of that reflected in here. I'm seeing several of how can we attract more young people?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of reiterated, we need more age diversity. Oh, this is done a lot. Age diversity and a welcome to our immigrant workers who are a big part of our community. You know, I have kind of a favorite quote, and it's that often we as organizations like to say, like, you are welcome here. You are welcome here. Please come in. Please come in. And I just want to name that there's something inherently different than saying you are welcome versus this space was made for you. Right? This space was made for you. And so I think it's often very, very valuable to think of what would this space look like if it was made for someone who was different than me? So I am coming to you today, able-bodied. What would my house look like if it was made for somebody who moved about the world differently than my own able body? Like I have a friend who is in a wheelchair. And also I have some older parents who I'm curious about how their evolution of body health will come. And so I talk to my husband frequently of, could we put in a ramp? Like to get up to our home, knowing that our parents are going to come and visit us. But we have not actually had the conversation around, like, what does our bathroom look like? Could somebody in a wheelchair access the needs that they need in our house? And I'm just saying that because knowing that somebody is welcome versus saying this space is made for you, it'll be easy for you to be here. Those are different things.
And Chris, I want to point out, that is an interesting question. How would we accept someone who is living on the street? And tying that into Danica's point, another question is our club made for someone who is living on the street? Like, what does it mean to say we're beneficial to all concerned, but is our membership really interesting for all concerned? So it's interesting because I think that's a great question to ponder on and to think about, and then to say, well, what would that mean for me as leading my club if we were to consider those that are unhoused as part of our community, as potential members of our community? What would that mean that we would need to change? Now, the question then is really thinking, as Danica and I have been talking, is these questions are moments to just increase our awareness. For those of you that might have said, I'm scared to ask the right question or I don't know, that's okay. See if any of those questions resonated with you, write them down, ponder that, because later today, we're going to get more deeper into some of the tangible things we can do. But we wanted to first provide this space to say, what are the questions that are top of our mind? And acknowledging that our clubs have places to grow, as we all do as a society. And what are the questions that we can be answering? What does it mean to stretch our thinking and say, how would we accept someone if they're living on the street? Would we even accept? So those are some of the questions that we just want to bring to the forefront of our minds when we start thinking about these conversations of inclusion and diversity and equity, and really thinking through, what are the questions that we can ask? What are we aware of? What are we not aware of? If you saw language in here, like the word Latinx or anything, and you aren't sure about what those terms mean, I would also offer, Danica, if I may, both of us, you can reach out and ask us questions if you just want to say, hey, what's this language mean? But here's why this is important, why we're talking about this now. We are stepping into place as Rotary. And this isn't just about us remaining relevant. This is about us being deeply impactful and committed to our service and committed to really creating service above self and service for a world that we can really change anything. Danica?
Sorry, I got totally swept up. I could just listen to you all day. So one of the things that I was thinking of too is just like, I was just sort of like in the flood of all these great perspectives and language. And I wanted to name, like earlier, I shared some of the things that I experience as a woman in this world. But I want to name too that I have had a lot of these similar questions that you all are asking, and I continue to have them, right? And I have continued to ask them in certain ways that were helpful, and then have had them reframed sometimes in ways that were more helpful or that opened up a different opportunity for me. So we didn't do my bio, and I don't know whether or not that feels necessary to anybody, but I have led and hosted a lot of events. And I know that Rotary like loves to hold spaces where people come together. And when I started asking the questions like, how do we make a space where folks feel really welcome? Like, so for example, I used to run a TED Talks at the university that I worked for. And when I started asking, who do I not see? I started recognizing that I actually had a lot of biases and blinders that I didn't even know I had. So I don't know if Jordan and I have even named this yet, but one of our hopes today is that we actually just begin to see what we haven't seen before. So that question of like, how would we welcome a homeless person into our meetings or into our space? What a wonderful question to share to a group so we can all explore. So one of the questions I was asking when I was running TED Talks was like, okay, who have I not been seeing? And actually what I did was took one of those identity wheels of like, like sometimes we talk a lot about race or we talk about gender. And right now we're even talking about like ableism or housing, but there's actually like 30 or more different kind of identities like veteran status and language status, and whether or not we have like sorry, I'm trying to think of the language, which country we're from and our different cultures, and whether or not we have citizenship. That was the language I was trying to get to, right? And so I actually had them printed out on different cards. And then we started at our like event planning process is laying out the identities. And sometimes we were able to say, hey, anybody who wants to come help plan an event, come in. And sometimes even after we did that, we recognized that there were a lot of similar identities in the room, right? We would often have a lot of able-bodied people or a lot of white people, and a lot of folks that were like at the university, right? Which kind of tells you a little bit about our frameworks. And so we would have to use these cards and say, well, how are we helping people who have disabilities? How are we supporting and welcoming folks and including and making sure we're creating a space that's designed for folks with disabilities? And then we realized like we didn't know a lot about different kinds of disabilities. And so we would have to search for resources. We also did things like, so by the way, we had chairs that were removed so that people could like pull their wheelchairs into spaces and so that they could have good sights. We had folks who did sign language. We had transcription services. We had hearing services so that folks could attend and that they would know that this was designed for them in many ways. Now, did we do enough? No, I don't think we ever did enough. But we did do things like have sensory rooms where the lights were dimmed down and it was calm. And we provided sound canceling headphones because often the neurodiverse aren't included in our concepts of how do we design an event. We also turned most of our bathrooms into gender neutral bathrooms with explanations of why everybody was welcome in this space and why it was important. And then we also had the gender binary bathrooms, which are often what you all see when we move out in the US public, but they had to go farther for it because we recognized that the norm on our campus was that usually gender binary identifying people and expression people would have gender bathrooms, like girls' bathroom and boys' bathroom identified for them. And then folks who wanted a gender neutral bathroom would have to have like a map and go find their space around campus. So we just kind of flipped the norm. Other things that we did was we provided hygiene products in the bathrooms because there's a norm around that in our society of who gets to have their hygiene needs met by society and who has to go the extra mile or provide them for themselves, right? So these are ways that I've had to like see who I wasn't including before, try to check my own understanding and biases and like stereotypes that I was holding, go and seek information from the folks who have the information, or better yet, from websites that they've created, so I'm not putting a burden on them. And then doing the extra work and labor to like make sure that we can, when we say this place was designed for you, that we were doing a better job of it. And I also had to hold the space that some folks were like, I don't want to do this. And I would explain again, here's why we chose this. This is a better alignment with our values than what we were doing before. What do you think, Jordan?
Rotarians, I'm seeing a lot of conversations talking about paper thin so people can take intermountain if you build. I see a lot of conversations about the money challenges, and we can get more into that. And I can talk a lot about different funding models or sliding scales or different things to do that. But I really want to focus on why we're having this conversation now and the things that Danica and I were really hoping in this first session we can ask you all to hold today. And as you go into this next year, we're just asking you all to hold this challenging concept for look what you don't see. Look for what you don't see. And trying to figure out how can you come and making sure, like Danica was saying, that we are looking and saying, who's not at this table? What can we do? And being intentional of saying, we will design this space for you. This initial session is just for us to say, what can we become aware of? How can we fight to stay aware? And how can we make sure that our clubs are really spaces that can be vibrant, thriving, diverse spaces? Danica?
Thank you, Jordan. I was just responding in the thread. I see that there's a lot going there, but I also see that Mayumi asked the question, what is the word that replaces inclusion? And I don't know how many folks are on this page, but like sometimes we say like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it becomes kind of a ubiquitous phrase, and we don't often talk about what it means. For me, diversity just means difference. And there's a lot of places where we don't even talk about difference. There's a lot of places where we just say like, I don't even see color. What? No, everybody's welcome here, right? And we're not actually naming that bigger context that folks are having different experiences in the spaces around us, particularly based on how society is built and different identities that they hold, right? And so diversity is one, equity is another one. We should unpack that sometime. But inclusion, I specifically named in one of our sessions that I often don't use the name inclusion anymore. I don't use it as often, partly because inclusion can be like, here, come here to us and we'll welcome you here. That's one of the ways I've heard it kind of used, like we'll include you in our system. And I think there's something really powerful in that being part of our process, like come, we'd like to include you. But I think the difference for me was that I wanted to move beyond inclusion and I wanted to get to impact. For me, with the identities I hold, I noticed that a lot of times I was centering my intent, but I meant well. I really want you all here. I meant to welcome you. Like I didn't mean to say that thing that upset anybody. And I wasn't actually centering impact. And now for me, I think like many of you, I identify as a change maker. I identify as a change leader. I am somebody that does badass, super cool stuff in the world. And I realized that I was claiming impacts as all beautiful and wonderful, when actually sometimes I was doing a lot of harm. So earlier when we were listening to Jordan share his experiences and I was sharing some of mine, I was sharing the experiences of times when I have been hurt by the lie and by the systems that tell me as a woman, I'm going to tell you how to be. But the truth is I have more than just one identity. So sometimes I've actually been on the other side of that, where I have said in a hiring process, well, I think that person's just a better fit. They're the right fit for this culture. And I didn't recognize that when I was saying that, so here's me telling you my intent again, right? I didn't realize that when I was saying that I was actually perpetuating systems that often keep the same kind of people in the same places, in the same sort of power with the same resources. What I had to learn to shift to was that the impact of that was that I was actually expressly working against our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, impact, and justice, right? Sorry, where were we? I see you drifting off. Do you want me to keep going? I can give some more examples.
That's perfect. I was just looking at some of the conversations going on, and I'm so glad this chat is going off, you all. Like this is not time to have it. Let's have these real conversations. Let's have these real wanderings. This isn't the space where we'll kind of get to all of these questions, but at the end, we'll provide some closure in this. And I think one of the tenets in this work is to expect and accept non-closure. When we're answering and addressing some of these questions and challenges, we're not going to answer all this in today's session, but we are going to at least be on the right pathway of looking for what we don't see, of being aware of how the systems are impacting how we're thinking and what we're building, and also looking at how we can build a more sustainable club that's building goodwill and better friendships every single day. And I'm seeing a lot of the chat still going on. I feel like there's some really good conversations going on, Danica.
The chat is amazing. May I make a suggestion? my experience with the Rotarians has been that you all want to be in this conversation, that you recognize like, wait, that feels weird. I've been pushed back several times on like, I don't like being told about white privilege because I worked hard for what I got. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we came together as Rotarians and talked about that? Because I actually think you have some of the frameworks and the needs now and the knowledge to say, well, here's why we do talk about privilege, white privilege, able-bodied privilege, gender privilege, right? And it's because we're naming, not that you didn't work hard for what you got, but that with certain kinds of privilege comes the acknowledgement that like we didn't have certain kinds of obstacles and barriers. So yeah, we can do that learning around our use of the word privilege, but also I want to highlight you all are having beautiful and deep and courageous conversations. And this is what it takes to deepen our impact. This is it. This is how we begin the process of truly seeing and speaking truth, and then being equipped to decide what is fair and what is right.
And to be mindful of time, I think we'll close out this part with just saying thank you all for just engaging in this space, in this conversation, and the real truths that we brought to you all today to sit with, to marinate with, to question, to consider, to challenge, to research, but all in the practice of building equitable clubs and clubs that are about service in beautiful ways that are making sure that our impact is intentional, that we serve communities and look like some of the communities that we're serving, and really designing our clubs going forward. Because here's the thing, you all. I know that every single person, I don't want to say I know, I will assume that every single person on this call wants to do something that will be generationally excellent. Now, I would challenge you all that if we are going to set our sights, not on just the generation that we're in now, but in the generations that are to come, that we are doing a large disservice if our clubs remain the same in how they look and how they feel and how they stay. But if we're thinking about how will Rotary survive longer than my great grandchildren, we can really begin thinking about the intentionality, the questions we need to ask, who do we want in our club, not as a means of, let me just get them in there to say that they like it. Because we know if they aren't really bought in, they're gonna not stay in Rotary. But if they really come in, if they engage and plug in, you all can be the generational accelerators in making sure that our clubs remain relevant, that our Rotary stays focused on building a better world, and most importantly, that we can actually say, this is going to change the world in a more tangible way. That's to say, we're doing great things now, but my challenge is that we can do even greater in building a next level club that's not just for this generation, but for every generation to come after us. And it starts with saying, how will I make this club feel, look, taste, everything different in a way that folks that might look different, that might be acting different, that might look like they don't look like Rotarian. If we broaden that view, we can make sure that the generations to come will say, Rotary is a place that I must be at, that I will serve at, and that I can be part of a generational difference. And that's what we're here to do. I love y'all deeply, Rotarians, as is one of y'all's from the community. This is the challenge that I bring to my club. This is the challenge that I bring to every clubs, that we are in a moment where we are going to pivot into staying here or to saying we are going to build generations of excellence to come. And that starts with how are we redesigning, questioning, examining, looking for things that we don't know, and saying that this is something that can, if it changes for the better, we will really change the world. Danica?
Again, Jordan, I'm just kind of in the flood zone here. Yes to everything Jordan said, and I'll add this. One of the things that I have to hold, like genuinely, because it wants to slip away, is this awareness that as we enter these conversations, we don't have a quick fix. It's the long haul. We're in this for the long haul. And so the thing I have to hold is this, that we have to expect and accept non-closure. So as we send you off to your next sessions, please know that we intentionally left this like tsunami on your plate so that you can accept and expect non-closure and just get used to the fact that there's not a tight bow here, but we can hold this. You have enormous capabilities. So use them in this, use them to hold the yes and. Yes, I have these experiences and thoughts. And I heard them say that. And something in that resonated with me. And there's a truth there I need to unpack. So as you go into your next sessions, perhaps consider, what are the truths I see in this room? And what are some of the lingering components of the lie that I see? And they don't have to just be in our sessions, right? As you go to the grocery store, you'll see it. But I will name this. I'm going to ask you to keep your hearts open and your minds can take notes if you need to. Like, here's some truths I see. Being with people is really valuable. Here's some of the lie that I see that are still stuck here. We're hearing from more people, certain people more than others. Certain people feel silent, whatever it might be, whatever you're noticing in the rooms, take time to notice it and feel it. And then we'll come back in a couple hours and we'll just talk about it, and we'll share some tools how to go from the wondering and the discord and the dissonance to here's a few things that I could do when I'm in that place. So we're not going to leave you hanging forever, and we're not going to hang a bow, because we're going to do both.
Well, thank you both so much. I personally need like a few deep breaths to just like sit in all of that awesomeness. So collectively as a group, if we could just take a moment to do that. Deep breath in and out. Okay, one more. I need one more. Okay, so next we are moving into our breakout sessions, and thank you both so much for leaving us with those closing thoughts that we can carry with us when we move through there. So in our breakout sessions, there are 4 different sessions. There's a president-elect training, a president-elect nominee training, a secretary training, and a vibrant club training. So each of you should know from your registration email as to which one you signed up for. And I'm just here to remind and stress that you won't be sent there from this main plenary session. We'll need to close out of this one, just log out and then go click the link either in your DACDB event app or through the direct Zoom link in the email to pop into your particular session. If you have technical difficulties, there's Bob, Debbie, Case, myself that'll hang in this main room for a moment here to help you out. Any questions right now about diving into the breakouts? They will last until about 11:25, at which point your presenter will remind you to log back into this main session via the original link for that. And then we'll get back into more of this great conversation. So with that, please convene into your breakout by 10:30 at the latest to start. So if you need to take a little bio break, there's a small opportunity for that now. Thank you. So again, please hop out of the plenary session and into your individual sessions.
Yeah, he went to work out, he said.
Everybody doing all right?
Wow.
Really? Wow, that was a waker-upper.
Yeah, so it looks like we have a few people that still need to go into their 10:30 session. So if there's any questions.
Everyone on this Zoom meeting needs to shut down, leave the meeting, and then go to your next meeting. You can do that through your My Event app, or else go on the link in the email that I sent to you.
And to leave this meeting, there's a little leave button down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to click you out here and then to come back in.
And Case and Debbie, I just asked if you guys would be able to maybe send that guidance out one more time. I don't know if you have the time to do that, just in case there's a little bit of a struggle for some folks. Like a copy of that confirmation email or something with the link. Thank you.
You can paste the links in the chat right now if that might help.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're doing, Stacy?
Yes, is that okay?
Thank you, Stacy.
Sure.
I feel the hesitation, Case. If you feel a different direction.
Well, no. I mean, I was the first half hour I was dealing with people that had difficulties, actually the first 45 minutes. So I missed some of the presentation, but I think it's working.
We had 133 sign into that presentation. So so now we have, so Dottie and Joy and John, Anna, Anita, do you have questions on how to get to your next session?
It's not with this Zoom link.
Yeah, you have to leave in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, this meeting, and they'll click into your next Zoom link that was sent to you.
So I left, but I don't see the next link to my session. I'll look for it.
So
I
it
don't
was in
either.
the email that you received, Anna.
Or if
Okay.
you like, you could copy and paste it out of the chat. I've just posted them there. So you would find if you're president-elect or nominee or secretary or Vibrant Club.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go and check. Oh,
So I'm trying to log into
Bosco's phoning.
and it's asking for a password.
Which one is?
President-elect with Lynn. It's asking for a password. I've tried the Rotary 2021. That's not it.
Hold on.
Thanks.
Am I in the president-elect session right now?
No.
No, you're still in the plenary.
So Stacy, I've got Scott on the phone and he's having the same problem. He's trying to get into the president's meeting and it's asking for a passcode.
Mine is
So
too.
that would be Lynn probably would have set up that session. Case, what should we do there?
Okay, yeah, I've got Chris Buck on the line with the same problem. The link is no good. I have to phone Lynn.
Okay. Hang in there, Scotty. We'll
Um,
find out.
Chris, at some point, I'm going to fix this link, and then you need to log out of, or you need to use my event. So I have to phone in. Okay.
Stacy, do you
Yeah,
want to
bye.
try and log into Linda Bowers and see if they're having the same problem?
Sure.
Is it just Lynn? And how about
And we, instead of creating a new link, we could just pop in and see what the password is, or we could create the new link. I'll mute myself and try Linda's.
I'm late to this conversation, but what is the passcode for the president-elect breakout meeting?
They're trying to figure that out right now. There's a glitch.
Okay.
Hi, folks. I came back in because I don't have a Zoom link to the Vibrant Club one.
So Maria, if you look in the right-hand chat, do you see the links in the chat? They might not be showing because you just logged back in.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. Sorry.
All right, hang on a sec.
I assumed it was on the email that was sent out, so I exited out and then didn't have one. Thank you.
Oops, I didn't mean to send that just to Scott. How about everyone?
Okay, yeah, Gary's got the same problem. Maria, yeah, okay, just a minute. Yikes.
I'm texting Lynn. So they're saying that they're putting everyone in the waiting room until 10:30. So that's one thing that's going on that'll give us a chance to try and fix this. Hi, Gary. Debbie Dawkins here. I think go out and give it a couple minutes and then try again. We're having some issues with passcodes. So it's not you, it's us. So go ahead and just